I'm President Donald Trump, and I have the greatest hair you've ever seen. If you watch Liquid Lunch, you'll see that John Tobacco has probably one of the worst hairlines ever. But watch it anyway. It's a good show.
Hey, welcome back. It's a terrific Tuesday. It's a Table Talk Throwback Tuesday, and the olives are falling out of the tray of antipasto. It's the kickoff of Italian-American Heritage Month, and joining me in studio today is former Congressman from Staten Island and Brooklyn, Vito Fossella, and Republican strategist Jen Kerns joins us again. She's a contributor to The Hill, former spokesperson for the California Republican Party. Jen, first of all, last week I caught a few clips of you and Rich Valdez filling in for Frank and I.
That's true.
And you were saying, oh, well, Frank and John are away, we must play, and all this other stuff. I liked it. You look great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
She's always here for us on Liquid Lunch. But Jen, last year, the Women's March returns to Washington this week. And the big news last time was the lady walking around with the big uterus on her head. And that became like the moment. What does this mean? I'm all for women's rights. You know, on Liquid Lunch, we have Women Wednesday. We have women on every day, great women like you. But on Wednesday, we have all women because we want to get that unique perspective. But what is this? Is it still effective to have this march right now?
Well, there's nothing more attractive, first of all, than a woman walking around with a uterus on her head, right?
I've never seen that before.
But look, the Women's March is planning to come back this Sunday in Washington, D.C. They're planning to do an Impeach Kavanaugh rally. This is on the eve of the Supreme Court taking the bench for the fall season, and their target is going to be Brett Kavanaugh. There are a couple of problems with this. Number one, we have been there and done that with the Women's March. They tried to keep Brett Kavanaugh off of the bench in the first place. I think that narrative has run its course. And secondly, there's a lot of other impeachment talk, which I think sort of steps over their message. So, as usual, Democrats trying to throw everything but the kitchen sink at it to see if it can stick. I think it's going to be less attended than it has been in previous years.
I think they're throwing even the kitchen sink. And now, when you're talking about a double impeachment, you want to impeach a Supreme Court justice and the president at the same time. It sounds like a lot to swallow. But we have someone here who was in the back room, and when Bill Clinton was under impeachment. Vito, is this like impeachment mania? Is this impeachment derangement syndrome or something? What's happening?
Well, I think it's a very serious issue to discuss impeachment, let alone proceed with impeaching a president of the United States. You almost get the feeling, frankly, that it really doesn't mean anything anymore. It gets, like a lot of things, you get thrown around so much, it doesn't mean anything. And I think that's a problem long term for the next person that occupies the Oval Office or a Supreme Court justice. When you just start throwing impeachment around, these things should have meaning. You know, there was a lot of deliberation as it was introduced and made part of the Constitution, the significance of that, because why? At the core of it, it's undoing an election. The people go to the polls, they choose. You know, in the 1700s, that wasn't a common occurrence around the world. But our founding fathers thought it was so important to give people this right to choose their leaders. And basically, impeachment that is being abused is undoing the will of the people, taken to its logical extreme. And as I mentioned, I think earlier, we saw the Brett Kavanaugh hearings. Many people saw it in plain day. A lot of folks said, well, if this guy is really a bad guy, he doesn't belong there. But they just kept on making these accusations and allegations, and they all proved unfounded. And then they never let up. So to Jen's point is, you know, been there, done that. At what point do we sort of move on?
Yeah.
And I think that's where most people, I think, are. There are some partisans on let's call it on the left, 30, 40%, what that number is. They are lock, stop. You know, they're not going to stop until it happens.
Yeah.
Yep.
I make a lot of unfounded claims on this show, like Jeffrey Epstein is still alive and he's masquerading as Joe Walsh and running against Donald Trump in a plot with the Clintons to still take down Trump. But one thing that I think is happening is I feel like the deep state and Hillary's camp has decided to throw Joe Biden to the wolves with this whole revelation about Ukraine. They're trying to expose Joe to get him out of the race and maybe get Warren in there. But now Hillary's on this media tour, Jen. And could she be back? This is like Tales from the Crypt.
That's true. It's the campaign that won't die. And the reason it won't die, she never did face What Happened. That was the name of her book last year. Didn't sell too well because most people didn't care what happened. They knew what happened. That her favorables never got above a certain point. And still today, Hillary Clinton's favorable ratings are still low. Look, it's possible that Hillary Clinton could make a comeback. I've talked about this on the show quite a bit. She could say, okay, twist my arm. Joe Biden is now mortally wounded. Okay, I'll run, draft me. But I think what's more likely to happen, the word is that Hillary Clinton has been meeting with big Hollywood studios, getting funding for projects that she and Chelsea Clinton are going to be doing together, just like the Obamas did with Netflix last year. So great news for you. Now you can be lectured on Netflix, not only by President Barack and Michelle Obama,
and Clinton,
but now Chelsea and Hillary Clinton going to tell you what's up with women.
Hey, Vito, in our final minute here, could you see any way that Hillary can get back in this race at this point?
Yeah, I think they're always, they've proven to be, the Clintons, to their credit, have proven to be very resilient in the efforts of staying relevant and then on the national and international stage. So I give them credit for that. So if this plays off down this corridor, to your point of perhaps encouraging or forcing Joe Biden out of the race, that leaves a pretty big hole for somewhat of the, a moderate, so-called moderate Democrat, and the most likely one could be a Hillary Clinton. So I can see it happening. I think that when all is said and done, the nominee is going to be either Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, because that vote is one and the same, and probably my guess is Warren, but I can't commit to that. So I think that's where the intensity is in the primary. That's where the activity is. That's where the movement is. So that's what I pretty much see happening.
She doesn't have much time. First, primaries February 3rd, and then we go into Super Tuesday. If Biden can survive, he will be the nominee, surprisingly.
All right, we're going to go out of this segment by thanking Jen Kerns for being here and thanking former Congressman Vito Fossella for joining us. He's got to cut out. But we're going to be back right after this. And Vito, just before we go, maybe Jen, you can help me. This New York 11 congressional district that got won by this guy Max Rose, he's very vulnerable. Can we maybe try to get Vito to get back in that race and take one back for the team, or what?
Let's do that. Let's do that. On air here, you heard it first.
I'm going to have one more piece of dried sausage.
You might actually need a drink before that.
You're watching Liquid Lunch. We'll be back right after this.